is small business. I was actually.
We live right now. Presidential Bay in the background, man. We turning up, man. We finna break this down live in effect. Let's do it.
As a small business owner, I love
You hanging
small
around?
businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to startup small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in.
She said she gonna give us $50,000 for small businesses.
My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump sales tax,
50.
which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that
she came out ready. I will say Kamala came out ready, P. Her facial expressions right now is sensing all readiness.
Because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
She ain't stuttering or stumbling.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And
China.
The tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. They would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places they've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States.
Denver?
You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado.
Denver?
They're taking over the towns.
Exactly. I was just there.
Going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country. And they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to
immigration. Woo, Trump, nigga. Y'all get out there and vote, because I am not, so I'm pumping up Trump.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression.
It was a fucking world shutdown.
The worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
Explain.
And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess.
How?
What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you on this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic.
Yes, we did.
The pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died. Has there been anything like it? We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic.
Indeed.
We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock
Was
market was
booming.
higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that
This is
nobody
true.
thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military, they give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back. And it
Fucking
bounced back
waitresses,
to their benefit. But
restaurants,
obviously the
shit that was already closed.
and so does
So
everybody else.
the unemployment is gonna jump because all the business is already
Donald Trump
open.
has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse, mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues, and I'd invite you to know.
I'm not
that
gonna lie,
Donald
she
Trump
speaks really
actually has
good.
no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
Damn, she speaks very good. I'm not even gonna hold her. That bitch speak
I
good
went
as a
to the Wharton
motherfucker.
School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up.
And she look good too. Fuck, damn, she low-key got my vote. I'm like, damn.
Want to be able to go and work.
She's convincing
and
me.
create jobs.
I'm gonna have to
and
turn this bitch off.
Good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have
Hell
a plan.
no.
She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences. Like four sentences that he just, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a
That
plan.
nigga's stupid. He said her plan is 4 sentences long, and it's the same one Biden had. He said, "Oh, we're gonna make some money happen."
Because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan.
How old is Kamala, man?
20% on goods
She
coming
looking
into
good
this
up there.
country.
I'm not gonna hold
As you
it.
know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll be higher prices
hey.
on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
Now I see why niggas said she slept her way to the top. I would have smacked that bitch and gave her a position too.
And all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions
Here,
of
bitch,
dollars.
Vice President,
So were other
give me some
countries.
top.
And if she doesn't like them, they should have got out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their.
Look at her, bro. She kind of cute. I'm not even gonna hold her. And then imagine 20 years ago. Oh
No
shit.
inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen.
She
a worse
said
inflation.
it. What do you
People
mean?
can't go out and buy
I mean, I don't know if she said it, but everybody else said it.
anything else.
I highly doubt
The
that
people
woman
of our
has
country are
Man, that bitch
absolutely dying.
definitely gave top to a couple white men to get to that goddamn presidential stage. For sure. Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If Megan Thee Stallion, hey, you know what? I'll fuck around and get canceled, man. Let me not get a defamation case. Allegedly, folks.
What the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology.
I'm not
so
gonna
that
lie,
we
she's
win
winning
the
this
race
right
on
now.
AI and quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to
gotta
support
fix them
America's
links, truck.
workforce so
We know
that
you're
we don't
losing,
end
but
up having
you gotta
the-
pull
the
something out.
short end of the
You gotta
stick
pull something out the
in
bag.
terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat.
Damn.
She's gone to my philosophy. But
Kamala look
she
good. I'm not
she
even gonna hold her,
changed it,
man.
And it will be the end of our country.
Like, I'm
She's
not
a
even gonna
Marxist.
cap.
Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy.
Trump gotta say something important, man. He ain't
has
saying shit right now.
destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that we say they have to hate our country.
He was killing Biden.
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade last year. You
He's
said
losing
that
this right
you
now,
wanted to be
bad,
the
like
most pro-life
terrible.
president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia,
Trump.
not the current governor.
Damn, bro. I don't think you're gonna win this
but the
one,
governor
Pete.
before, he said the baby will be born, and we will decide what to do with the baby.
You can
We'll
tell who's the
execute
politician
baby.
and who's
And
not.
that's why I did that, because that predominates. Because
It's
they're
very
radical.
clear.
The
Like,
Democrats
it's
are radical.
very, very,
And her
very clear.
Vice presidential pick, which I think was a
She's
hard
way better
pick,
than
by the way,
Hillary.
for our country, because he is really out of it.
And way better than
Vice
Biden.
presidential
She
pick
might
says
win. I
abortion
think
in
she's
the
gonna
9th
win.
month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's an execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born.
He's not saying
It's
shit.
okay.
Like,
And that's not
politically,
okay with me.
he's
That's
just
the-
ranting.
But what I did is something.
That's what he
for
always
52
does.
years. they've been
It was
doing
working with it was working with Biden. Against her, it's not
genius
because
and heart and strength
Just standing there breathing air. He was
Supreme
fighting
Court
for his
justices.
life.
Exactly.
able to do
And
that. Now, I believe in
and she is
exceptions
articulating
for
herself
exceptions.
so
Like
well.
her mother, I believe strongly
She
in
is
her
running
ability to do
circles
so.
around this nigga right
85%
now.
of Republicans do.
Yeah.
Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to
The
the
media
states where
said
people
Kamala
vote.
couldn't speak.
And that's what happened.
She is
Now,
eating him alive right now.
the vote was
Live, in
somewhat
effect.
liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're gonna hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here.
Damn.
Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in
She
over
is killing
20
this nigga.
states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That
It's
is
like watching your
immoral.
favorite football team getting blown
And
out by
one does
21
not
in the
have
first
to
quarter.
abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs
It's
to
like,
agree
damn, do we
that
got
government
any hope of coming back?
is
This shit is getting worse by the minute.
what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry
She
a
looking
pregnancy
dead at
to
this,
term,
man. He can't even look
suffering
at
from
her.
a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want
There's
that.
white women at home clapping
And
right
I
now.
pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about
She
one's
talks
own
so. I could
body,
listen
should
to her
not be
talk
made
all
by
day.
government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes
Who the
again.
hell said she
It's
was
a
a
lie.
bumbling
I'm
moron?
not
They,
setting
that,
the ban,
that's just them
and there's
clips
no
they be
reason
putting
to
up that's
celebrate
10
because
seconds.
We've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every
She
legal
sound like a
scholar
singer when
wanted
she
it to be
speak.
brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart. And they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well, I
to your
won't
desk?
have to because again, and 2 things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of when they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said,
Come on,
"We'll do it
Trump.
again. We'll do it
Them
differently.
shits ain't gonna
We'll
work, bro. You gotta
reject
come
it
with some
again
shit that
by
we
the
wanna
Supreme
hear.
Court." So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying, it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with JD, in all fairness. JD, and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it
Chat,
doesn't matter what she says
I don't
about
think
going to
Donald
Congress.
Trump
We're wonderful. Let's
gonna
go to
win this
Congress,
one.
do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government.
They gonna have to tie that bitch tongue up if he wanna win a
And now
debate.
you have a vote.
Cause it ain't no way in hell she gonna lose any of
Vice
these.
President, give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you
He gonna have to
support
get her out of her
any
body or
restrictions on
something.
women's right to an abortion?
He gonna be like, bitch, you slept with him, remember? And she be like,
Like
like that?
As you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America
Damn.
is a woman
He gonna have to throw some. He gonna have to throw.
and ask asking
curveball
for
at this
abortion.
bitch.
That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what
He gonna have to.
happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans.
He gonna have to like untie her shoe or like
and
motherfucking stash her like how Booby Miles hit the nigga helmet on Friday After Nights. He gonna have to do something like that. Like turn the bitch mic off or something.
Who are working 1 or 2 jobs.
She is killing this
who can
nigga though.
barely afford childcare as it is. Have to travel.
He gonna hide her. He gotta hide her wedding ring.
To get on a
Something.
plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs.
Fire her goddamn makeup artist.
Afford to do
God
what
damn it.
you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have
Cause he looks sad up there. I'm not even gonna lie. He looks sad cause he know he getting his ass whooped. And she look
in every state
by
where
far
this
way
issue
better
has been
than
on
this
the
nigga.
ballot in red and blue states both. The people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President.
Excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie.
Then she came up there dripping too. She got the pearls and the
Which
hoops.
is fertilization.
She got pearls in one ear and then
I have
hoops in
been
the
a
other one.
leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, then you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month? Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that
Why
question?
don't you
That's
answer the
problem.
question? Would you
Because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question.
you
Would you
could,
veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just like
That nigga said an abortion after birth. Nigga, that's murder.
Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's
This is going bad for Trump. He up there ranting. He's pissed.
Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root
This is
cause
hard to
of
watch.
migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden.
If she got an answer for this, man, this bitch gonna
We
win.
know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States.
Hey,
I know
stop
there's so many
deviating,
families
bitch.
watching tonight
Say what
who
you gotta
are personally
say.
affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow.
No,
us
because
to
this is one of those
prosecute
policies that was under the Biden
transnational
administration that got the country
trafficking
fucked up right now.
But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader.
All right, yeah, she didn't answer that question. She danced all the way around that
Actually
shit.
addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's gonna talk about immigration a lot tonight.
Yeah, she is a great debater, but that bitch just danced fully around that question. She didn't say shit that even answered or remotely resembled
Because it's a really interesting thing.
anything that
You will see during
her
the
policy-
rallies, he talks
Huh?
about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about
No, but this has been the Biden crisis this entire time. Like, motherfucking immigrants is crossing over thousands and thousands, and she literally just danced around this entire question for 2 minutes.
What you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires.
And the bad thing is, she said she endorsed that shit too.
Deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Oh yeah. Nah, fuck that. That was a terrible answer, but you
Let
can't.
me just ask though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so, that would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border?
First, let me respond to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's busing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And
3.5 years ago.
We end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over.
Solid shit. Not that back shit y'all niggas got. Not that back shit that cheap ass motherfucking sauce and swap meat behind though.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies,
is that true?
The reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make.
He out there saying some outlandish shit now. I don't know how true that is. That nigga just says some wild shit. That nigga said they out there eating the pets of the fucking locals of Ohio, Springfield, Ohio. We gotta call some niggas up there in Springfield. Is this going on? What the fuck? Cause that's a crisis for real.
ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told
That
us
nigga said the Venezuelans are up there eating the animals of the Springfield, Ohio population. That's crazy.
Let me just say here, this is
The people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So
That nigga said the people on TV said my dog was taken and used for food.
again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you know.
This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this
Oh,
election,
shit.
I actually have the endorsement
Damn.
of 200 Republicans.
Yo, P, this is getting out of hand. Them niggas, this is like watching two high school motherfucking people that don't like each other talk shit to each
Former
other.
Vice President Dick Cheney and Congressmember Liz Cheney. And if you
Bros,
wanna really know,
this is the president of the United States. This nigga said the Venezuelans are up there eating cats and dogs and stealing them from people in Ohio, folks. This nigga be saying some wild shit. He be saying some wild shit, fool.
His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former secretary of defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen,
Nigga, we need that PPP Trump loan.
when the issues that affect the American
Fuck
people
y'all talking
are
about?
not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump will give you.
Man, go to any club in Miami, man. Them niggas gonna be like, yes,
because
Trump.
I hear that. See, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him, so he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me they can.
He said another one writes a book.
But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of the economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, than any Republican in history by far.
Bro is just up there joking around and
Than
shit.
any president, sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier. So let's get back to your deportation proposal.
Man, I ain't gonna lie, man. Kamala Harris,
President Trump, you called this the largest domestic.
I would have been on her at Howard, man. I ain't gonna hold you.
Use the National Guard.
What it do, Miss Harris? Oh, okay. You going to class? Give me hold them books real quick. That way I have a quick talk.
How would you deport 11 million?
See you in law
undocumented
school.
migrants? I know you believe much higher.
Might need some defense later on, you know. Keep my number, store it away.
In this country?
Yeah. It is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And then now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably...
It's gonna be like Scarface movie part 2.
But it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
Nigga, my hair look fly.
Overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country.
I'm gonna be in Aruba looking like a star. Crap.
They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference.
What do you
Has
do?
been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear.
Oh, that nigga's a G. We need that. We need Trump. He's a gangster. This nigga got criminal charges, bro. Put him up there, man. Put him in the office, man.
For defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important.
He don't want to go to jail like the average American.
Forward, that we turn the page on this.
If I had the ability to change the law right before they handed me a sentence, nigga, I would do it. What? Duh. If I could free Lil Wayne and Kodak Black, I would do it. Duh. What the hell? It's a no-brainer.
To support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent.
True.
And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases, and then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again.
God
Understand
damn,
this
nigga.
is someone who has openly
This is some
said
bullshit. You know how much shit you gotta fact check in this just to see
the
if
Constitution of the
who's
United
lying?
States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails. Because certainly we know now that court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice
to
President
stop
Harris.
him.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run
Yo.
for president,
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized.
Yeah.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me.
This
They
nigga
talk
Trump
about
losing.
democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy.
He
When they
get-
had Russia,
he getting
Russia
put on the
investigation,
platter, man.
that went nowhere.
Put a fork in him.
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed.
Oh, yeah.
So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every.
She
one of
just
the
speaking
things
way
that
better
you
than this
made.
nigga.
But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020.
She's like
I
a
will
real
not ban fracking.
politician.
I have not banned fracking.
He
as
up there
Vice
with the
President of United
jokes,
States, and in fact,
and
I
they not
led
sticking
the
as hard as
time-breaking
she is
vote on
spitting
the Inflation
facts.
Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have.
She's
got
just
to
more
invest
articulate. They hit her
in
the board.
diverse sources
The
of energy so
the
we
only thing
reduce
she
our
fumbled
reliance
on.
foreign oil. We have had
Hold on.
the largest
Cause she talking
increase
right now.
in domestic oil production in history because of an approach.
The front half of this, she won. The back half, she looking kind of iffy.
As it relates
Cause they
to my
talking about
values,
this
let me
immigration.
tell
She
you,
ain't got no
I grew up
answers.
a
She just
middle-class kid
talking in
raised by a
circles.
hardworking mother who
The
worked
the
at
abortion
Citi,
shit though, she
lived
killed that
on our
nigga.
first
Abortion
home when I
killed
was a
him.
teenager.
Economics,
The values
I
bring
think they was
to
like
the
1 and
importance
1.
of home ownership, knowing not everybody
Abortion
had
killed
handed
him. Immigration,
$400 million
she
on a
lost.
silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times is a value that I bring to my
So
work,
Trump up
to say
1
we are
round right
going
now.
to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down. And name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well, first of
response.
all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him, but I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars. Many,
Yes,
many
sir.
billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking? She's been against it for 12 years.
That's a cocky ass nigga, man.
Defund the police. She's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please.
Ooh.
Does that sound familiar?
Ooh.
She went out in Minnesota.
Oh
and wanted
no,
to
if that
let
was my bitch
criminals
blood, we would have had to
accuse
have
people
some words
and
at the
burn
end of
down
this meeting.
Minneapolis. She went out and raised money to get him out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal.
What the fuck?
She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will
Right.
never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day 1. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead, we'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert soil.
President Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that
for
we
the
have to get
environment,
to
as she
around time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically.
Ho ass nigga, state the facts right, bitch.
Was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people
Now, when
that
they
are pouring into our country and
stormed
killing
the,
people that she allowed to pour in?
Capitol.
She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, well, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America, they're coming in from all over.
It's so much shit to fact check. God damn, like,
And crime rates are down all over.
I'm gonna have to go search a tweet from 2020, nigga, to see if he really told them niggas to go storm the Capitol.
Minneapolis going to be prosecuted.
I ain't got time for that shit.
They wanted to see Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle.
I don't really, what he said, I don't really care. They need to make AI to be able to fact check. Was that a fact?
Simple question as we move forward toward another election.
That was a fact.
Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes,
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed
Yeah,
up to the
nigga,
speech.
he had nothing to do with that.
I went to Nancy Pelosi.
Plausible deniability. What is you talking about?
And the mayor put it back in writing, as you
I wasn't even there.
I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me, it was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital.
Yeah,
On
we were
that
talking
day,
about some fuck shit.
140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason.
You said that already,
This is
bitch.
an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that's another thing that would say debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jessica, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of the stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you say, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill...
All right, man, this shit's boring now. I'm done.
Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is...
They was live.